Hello Golden State Warriors fans. We are here once again to bring you the latest news related to our team, and I would like to emphasize how committed we are to improving our performance to achieve great results. Before we dive into this intriguing news, I kindly request you to show your support by clicking the like button, and if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, I invite you all to join us on an exciting journey. Remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
Steve Kerr has identified two surprising Warriors players as key contributors in one of the team's most important battles, the turnover game. And according to the head coach, their impact is directly tied to Golden State's ability to win. The Golden State Warriors seem to have rediscovered their footing, snapping a three-game losing streak with a commanding 134-117 victory over the Utah Jazz. The win was especially impressive considering the Warriors were without Draymond Green, Al Horford, and Jonathan Kuminga. Gary Payton II helped steady the rotation, while Stephen Curry delivered a vintage performance with 31 points and 6 three-pointers. Jimmy Butler added 18 points to help seal the night. But despite the scoring headlines, Kerr focused on something else entirely: ball security. And in that area, two role players stood out above all: Will Richard and Pat Spencer. "We took care of the ball, and that is our number one priority," Kerr said after the win. "When we hold on to the ball, we usually win. I think we're 9-1 when we win the turnover battle, and 1-8 when we don't." His point was unmistakable: the Warriors' path to success begins with limiting mistakes. Kerr went on to highlight how Richard and Spencer changed the game's tempo the moment they stepped onto the court. "I loved the way the ball moved. When Pat and Will came in, the ball flow, the energy, the rhythm, it just felt right." Against Utah, Spencer committed just one turnover in 14 minutes, while Richard produced a clean 22-minute stretch without a single mistake. Golden State finished with 14 turnovers overall. Curry accounted for 3, while forcing the Jazz into the same number. For Kerr, this wasn't a coincidence. It was validation. He has repeatedly stressed that ball security is the Warriors' lifeline. The stats back him up. Golden State is 9-1 when winning the turnover battle and just 1-8 when they lose it. Richard and Spencer typically don't log heavy minutes. Both usually hover below the 20-minute mark, but they excel in the one area Kerr values most. The two guards average a combined 0.7 turnovers per game, one of the lowest rates on the roster. Even when their stats are stretched to a per 36-minute projection, neither surpasses 2.5 turnovers. By comparison, regular rotation players such as Hield and Gary Santos average well above 3 per game. In a season where consistency and composure have been constant challenges, Richard and Spencer's discipline has become increasingly valuable. Their ability to protect the ball isn't just stabilizing the second unit, it may be earning them a more prominent role moving forward. For a Warriors team still searching for identity and rhythm, Kerr's message is clear: protect the ball, and the wins will follow. And if Richard and Spencer continue performing with this level of poise, their emergence might become one of the most unexpected and important storylines of Golden State's season. The conversation surrounding Will Richard and Pat Spencer is growing louder within the Warriors organization. What began as a pair of steady low-turnover performances has quickly evolved into a legitimate argument for expanded roles, especially at a time when Golden State is grappling with inconsistency and trying to steady a turbulent season. Coaches and staff members have quietly noted that the Warriors' offensive structure looks noticeably cleaner when either Richard or Spencer is on the floor. Their willingness to make the simple play, avoid forcing passes, and keep the pace controlled has helped stabilize second-unit lineups that often struggle with decision-making. In a team built around ball movement and precision, their fundamentally sound approach fits perfectly with Steve Kerr's system. Analysts around the league are beginning to take notice as well. Opposing scouts have pointed out that the Warriors' offense tends to stagnate when turnovers spike, especially without Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga to anchor key actions. With both players sidelined, the emergence of Richard and Spencer has offered Kerr a reliable safety valve. Their composure has allowed Golden State to maintain its offensive identity rather than abandoning structure in favor of isolation-heavy possessions. There is also a long-term layer to this story. The Warriors' front office has been exploring ways to retool the roster without sacrificing their core principles. Richard and Spencer were originally seen as developmental prospects, players who could fill rotation gaps if needed, but not necessarily ones whose presence would influence team-wide decision-making. That perception is shifting. Their efficiency is forcing legitimate conversations about rotation adjustments once the roster is fully healthy. Internally, some players have hinted that their presence has added a competitive edge in practice. In scrimmages, Both have shown a willingness to challenge veteran teammates defensively, push the pace responsibly, and make instinctive reads. While their box score numbers remain modest, their impact in controlled environments has earned the respect of the locker room. Kerr has been careful not to overstate the case, but his praise was deliberate. The Warriors are in a phase where every possession matters, and the team cannot afford the type of high-turnover outings that have cost them close games earlier in the season. With the Western Conference standings tightening, even marginal improvements in ball security could influence playoff positioning. The upcoming stretch of games will offer a clearer picture of how Kerr plans to integrate Richard and Spencer as key contributors rather than emergency depth. If they continue to deliver low-turnover, high-discipline minutes, the coaching staff may face pressure to keep them in the rotation, even as star players return from injury. Their emergence underscores an important truth about this Warriors team. While the headlines will always gravitate toward Curry, Green, and the marquee names, success often hinges on the players whose contributions don't dominate highlight reels. In this case, two unexpected guards have given Golden State something it desperately needed: stability. And if the team continues to thrive because of that stability, the ripple effects could shape the Warriors' rotation, strategy, and even roster decisions for the remainder of the season. Buddy Hield explains why 6 feet 2 inches Gary Payton II has become such an essential piece for the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors finally snapped their 3-game losing streak with a much-needed win over the Utah Jazz, a game where familiar leaders stepped up. Stephen Curry dropped 31 points and Jimmy Butler added 18, but the real difference came from the supporting cast. Buddy Hield and Moses Moody combined for 35 points and knocked down 7 threes, giving Golden State the offensive depth it desperately needed. But the Warriors also found stability in an unexpected place. Gary Payton II stepped into the void left by Draymond Green's absence and delivered the kind of all-around performance that often goes unnoticed on the stat sheet but completely shifts the rhythm of a game. Buddy Hield praises Gary Payton II's impact against the Jazz. Starting for the first time this season, Payton II immediately proved he belongs in that role. With Draymond sidelined due to a foot sprain, Payton II logged 20 minutes with the first unit and produced 9 points, 6 rebounds, and a career-high 8 assists, a stat line that closely resembled the connective, do-everything style Green brings to the floor. In his post-game remarks, Buddy Hield didn't hold back when praising Payton II's performance and mentality. "That's just Gary," Hield said via NBC Sports. "He always finds a way to impact winning for this team. We call him our 6'2" center. He dominates in the air, he blocks shots, he does all the little things teammates love. His entire approach is about helping us win, and you see why he already has a ring here." Hield went further, emphasizing how Payton II elevates the Warriors system. "He just connects everything. He knows where to be. He understands how to link up with Steph, and he finds open guys at an elite level. He plays his role better than almost anyone in the league." Payton II embraces Draymond Green's responsibilities. After the game, Payton II admitted that he was consciously trying to replicate aspects of Green's presence, knowing how much Golden State depends on Draymond's defensive organization and playmaking. "I was just trying to keep the energy and structure that Dre provides," Payton said. "We needed the win, so I wanted to make sure I supported the guys the way he would, moving constantly, creating openings, doing a bit of everything." The toughest assignment of the night was on the defensive end. With Green out, Payton II took on the responsibility of guarding Utah's top offensive threat, Lauri Markkanen. "We knew Markkanen was going to be the focal point of their offense," Payton said. "That's a matchup Dre would have taken right away, so I stepped into it. Be everywhere, create chaos, disrupt him, and try to get stops that can lead us into transition." The broader impact on the Warriors. Payton II's performance didn't just help secure a win, it also reinforced how critical versatile high-effort players are to Golden State's identity. With Green missing time and the team struggling with inconsistency, Payton's ability to mimic key parts of Draymond's game gave the Warriors both stability and inspiration. His showing may also influence Steve Kerr's rotation decisions moving forward, especially given how smoothly he meshed with the starters and how noticeably the team's defensive intensity improved with him on the floor. Golden State's locker room made it clear, when Gary Payton II takes on more responsibility, the entire team feels it. The Warriors' coaching staff also acknowledged the significance of Payton II's performance. According to team insiders, Steve Kerr has been searching for a reliable defensive anchor whenever Draymond Green is unavailable, and Payton's showing against Utah gave the staff renewed confidence in the team's ability to hold its structure without relying solely on its veteran core. Privately, Members of the coaching staff noted that Payton's ability to communicate on defense stood out just as much as his stat line. He consistently directed teammates through screens, switched assignments without hesitation, and orchestrated the Warriors' rotations in a way that resembled Green's trademark command of the defense. Those internal evaluations could lead to a more defined and elevated role for Payton moving forward, especially in lineups that emphasize pace and pressure. The ripple effect on the Warriors' roster. Payton II's emergence also brings new clarity to some of the questions that have lingered over Golden State's rotation. Players like Jonathan Kuminga and Moody have thrived in bursts, but the team has lacked a consistent defensive presence outside of Green. Payton's ability to fill that void not only addresses an immediate need, but also reshapes the roles of other wings and guards. In the locker room, several players referenced how Payton's presence allowed them to play more freely. Curry, in particular, benefited from having an additional defender who could take on primary assignments, allowing him to conserve energy for offense. Veterans described the atmosphere as settled, noting that the team looked more composed than it had during the recent losing streak. Media and fan reactions. Outside the team, analysts were quick to highlight the broader implications. Local media praised Payton II for restoring the Warriors' defensive intensity, a component many observers believed had faded during the skid. Some analysts even suggested that Golden State might need to consider more frequent small ball lineups built around Payton's disruptive style, especially in matchups where Green is either injured or unavailable. Fans echoed those sentiments, pointing out how noticeably different the team's effort level appeared when Payton was on the court. Several commentators argued that his influence extended beyond statistics, that his instincts, timing, and aggression embodied the championship DNA the Warriors have relied on for nearly a decade. What this means for the Warriors moving forward. The win over Utah may not resolve all the questions surrounding the Warriors this season, but it offered something the team desperately needed, a blueprint. Payton II's performance demonstrated that Golden State can still lean on its defensive identity, even when one of its foundational players is absent. Looking ahead, the Warriors know that consistency will determine whether this victory becomes a turning point or just a temporary lift. Payton II's expanded role could be a crucial piece of that puzzle, especially as the schedule tightens and the team faces opponents who will test their physicality and depth. For now, his impact has reshaped the internal narrative. Instead of worrying about what they lose without Draymond Green, the Warriors have been reminded of what they gain with Gary Payton II, a relentless defender, a connector, and a player whose influence stretches well beyond his size. Warriors duo gets a golden opportunity to save their NBA careers. They must take advantage of it, because the stakes have never been higher. The Golden State Warriors find themselves in trouble once again. A 3-game losing streak and a growing list of injuries have pushed the team into a difficult position heading into Monday's matchup against the Utah Jazz. Yet, amid the setbacks, the absences of Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, and Al Horford might open an unexpected and invaluable door for Tracy Jackson-Davis and Gouet Santos. For both young players, this could be the moment that determines not only their future with the Warriors, but potentially their careers in the NBA. A crucial chance for Jackson-Davis and Santos. Suggesting that the careers of Jackson-Davis and Santos are in jeopardy may seem dramatic, but the circumstances make it far from an exaggeration. Their contract situations and their standing in Steve Kerr's rotation have placed them in a precarious position. Jackson-Davis holds a $2.4 million player option for next season, but before that even matters, he must first secure his guaranteed salary for this year, a decision the Warriors must finalize by January 10th. After an impressive rookie campaign in which he came close to earning all-rookie second-team honors, he has experienced a significant decline in usage. Once viewed as the center of the future, he has slipped in and out of the rotation for the past year. The 25-year-old's playing time is again below expectations this season, 7 DNPs in the first 18 games and more than 10 minutes of action in only 5 of them. Production rarely follows inconsistency, and Jackson-Davis has struggled to find rhythm or opportunity. But that may now change. With Horford sidelined for at least the next 3 games due to a sciatic nerve irritation, and Green ruled out Monday with a foot sprain, Jackson-Davis is almost guaranteed meaningful, rotation-level minutes. It is the clearest runway he has had in months. Gouet Santos faces a similar crossroads. Santos is fighting a similar battle, perhaps an even more urgent one. His contract is also non-guaranteed until January 10th, and he's approaching the end of his deal without the kind of on-court resume that gives players security. The Brazilian forward logged 5 DNPs this season and averages just 7.3 minutes per game, the lowest of his young career, appearing for more than 10 minutes only 4 times. With Kuminga missing his sixth straight game due to knee tendinitis, many expected Santos to receive an expanded role given their similar positions and physical profiles. Instead, Kerr leaned on the more reliable veteran presence of Gary Payton II. But now, with Horford and Green both unavailable, the rotation is stretched thin, and Santos is positioned for the opportunity he has been waiting for. This could be his first real chance to carve out a role, prove his value, and shift the narrative surrounding his future. At 23, he cannot afford to let this moment pass quietly. The reality: jobs are on the line. The harsh truth is that Golden State could waive Jackson Davis and/or Santos at any time before January 10th. That alone puts enormous pressure on the young players. They are not fighting simply for minutes. They are fighting for their place in the league. For a team battered by injuries and struggling for consistency, this is a rare moment where necessity meets opportunity. The Warriors need energy, size, and impact. Jackson Davis and Santos need a path forward. If they seize this window, even for a handful of games, it could redefine their roles and reshape their futures. If they don't, the organization may not hesitate to move on. Either way, the next stretch of games will reveal whether the young duo can rise to the moment or fade into the background of a crowded roster fighting to stay alive in the Western Conference. The coming stretch will also reveal how much trust Steve Kerr is willing to place in the younger tier of the roster. Throughout his tenure, Kerr has leaned heavily on veterans, often prioritizing experience over raw potential. That philosophy has produced championships, but it has also created friction in recent years, particularly as young players search for real opportunities to prove themselves. Jackson Davis and Santos now sit at the heart of that philosophical tension. Inside the organization, there is quiet acknowledgement that the Warriors' developmental pipeline has not produced the impact players they once hoped for. James Wiseman, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and Jordan Poole all represent chapters of unrealized potential or mismatched expectations. The front office understands that losing another pair of young prospects without giving them a genuine shot would fuel further criticism. That reality adds another layer of pressure to the minutes Jackson Davis and Santos may receive. They are not the only ones being evaluated. Kerr's ability or willingness to develop talent is under scrutiny as well. Analysts around the league have also begun to weigh in. Many note that the Warriors' current roster construction leaves them particularly vulnerable to injuries among their bigs. Green's availability has fluctuated, Horford is 38 with a long mileage history, and Kevin Looney has struggled to maintain the form that made him a postseason cornerstone in years past. Without reliable depth in the frontcourt, Golden State risks being physically overwhelmed by more athletic teams in the Western Conference. If Jackson Davis or Santos can rise to the moment, they could stabilize what has quietly become one of the team's biggest weaknesses. The trade market looms as another subplot. The Warriors are monitoring potential moves, especially with Jonathan Kuminga still sidelined and noticeably frustrated with his role before the injury. Should Golden State explore bigger trades, Jackson Davis and Santos could either become necessary rotation pieces, making them too valuable to move, or expendable assets if they fail to impress. Their performance in the next handful of games could significantly alter how the front office approaches discussions around February. There are also ripple effects within the locker room. Veterans on the team understand that young players earning minutes due to injuries can change the dynamic of the rotation moving forward. Strong performances from Jackson Davis or Santos could reduce the roles of players further down the bench or even challenge the minutes of established contributors. That type of internal competition can be healthy, but it can also create tension if not managed carefully. Kerr will need to balance short-term needs with long-term development, all while keeping the group unified during a turbulent stretch. For the Warriors as a whole, this moment represents something larger than an opportunity for two young players. It is a crossroads for an aging dynasty trying to remain relevant in a league dominated by faster, younger, and deeper teams. Golden State cannot rely on past success to carry them through the season. They need new energy, new contributors, and a spark from somewhere unexpected. Whether Jackson Davis and Santos can provide that spark will become clear soon enough. Both players know the stakes. Both understand that the margin for error is thin. And both are aware that opportunities like this do not come often, especially on a team fighting to maintain its identity while the landscape around it evolves. Their response, starting this week, may not only influence the Warriors' season but determine whether their NBA journeys continue. The Warriors may soon discover the darker side of Jimmy Butler if their sloppy play continues. Up to now, they've only experienced the best version of him, but that may not last much longer. Golden State's season has been a roller coaster from the very start. What began as a promising steady run quickly turned into a stretch of inconsistency, and if the team continues to fluctuate, or if they extend their current skid, the tone around Butler could shift dramatically. When the Warriors acquired Butler in a major trade last season, there were understandable concerns. His previous stops around the league came with tension, clashes, and questions about how he fit into a locker room. But none of that has surfaced in Golden State so far. By all accounts, Butler has been a model teammate. He's embraced the structure of the Warriors system, fully aware that everything still runs through Stephen Curry. He hasn't tried to dominate the spotlight or disrupt the team's hierarchy. Instead, he has taken on a mentor-like role with younger players such as Jonathan Kuminga and developed an unexpectedly entertaining chemistry with Buddy Hield. For now, the Warriors have been treated to good Jimmy Butler. But that equilibrium is fragile. Much of Butler's easygoing presence stems from the fact that the Warriors have played well since his arrival. Golden State closed last season on a 23-8 run after adding Butler, won their first-round playoff series against the Houston Rockets, and were competitive in the second round against Minnesota before Curry went down with a thigh injury. This season began as a continuation of that momentum. The Warriors opened 4-1, looking every bit like a serious contender in the West. But after weeks of peaks and valleys, they've slipped to a 9-9 record. And following their most recent loss, an uninspired performance against the Portland Trail Blazers, Butler issued his sharpest critique yet. "We're just not guarding anybody. From what I can tell, and I haven't been here long, that was never the recipe. To win a championship, you have to take every matchup personally. Sure, there's help, but we've got to be much better defensively. Much better." Butler didn't call out any individual player, but the message was unmistakable: he expects more. He did not come to Golden State to wind down his career in mediocrity. His goal is to help push this core toward at least one more championship run. It's far too early to say the season is unraveling. But if the Warriors fail to correct their defensive issues, sharpen their execution, and stabilize their identity, they may not like the version of Jimmy Butler they see next, one who demands urgency rather than patience, accountability rather than excuses. And if that moment comes, Golden State will have to decide how much truth they're ready to hear. Butler's comments didn't just echo through the locker room, they ignited conversations throughout the organization. According to team personnel, his words were not delivered in anger but with a precise, almost calculated intensity, the kind that signals a veteran drawing a line in the sand. For a team that has long relied on internal accountability, his voice now enters a space once reserved for the franchise's longest-tenured leaders. Inside the Warriors facility, coaches and players acknowledged that Butler wasn't wrong. Defensive lapses, slow rotations, and a lack of physical engagement have surfaced repeatedly over the past 2 weeks. While the coaching staff has stressed patience, the urgency Butler referenced is beginning to weigh on the group, especially given the competitive landscape of the Western Conference. Stephen Curry, still the emotional anchor of the franchise, responded diplomatically when asked about Butler's critique, noting that championship habits don't rebuild themselves, and that the roster has to want it every single night. Privately, however, some within the team admit that Curry's workload has quietly increased as the Warriors try to stay afloat during their inconsistent stretches. Draymond Green, who has historically been the loudest voice in holding teammates accountable defensively, reportedly appreciated Butler's willingness to speak up. For years, Green was the one who delivered tough truths. Now, for the first time in a long time, he isn't the only veteran demanding defensive pride. The coaching staff views this as a potential turning point, but only if the message is received rather than resisted. The front office is also watching closely. With the roster built around aging stars and a shrinking window for contention, the Warriors cannot afford internal friction or extended slumps. If the team cannot stabilize, executives may be forced to consider rotation changes or mid-season adjustments, especially on the defensive end. Butler's comments in that sense weren't just a warning to his teammates, they were a signal to everyone involved in shaping this team. Around the league, rival scouts have taken notice as well. Some believe Butler's frustration reflects a deeper structural issue with Golden State's roster balance. Others think his critique could be the spark the Warriors need, much like his past teams often responded after similar moments of blunt honesty. Coaches who have worked with Butler before describe this phase as the last call before things get real, referencing the point at which he stops nudging and starts demanding. For now, the Warriors insist the chemistry remains strong. Players have stated repeatedly that these conversations, even uncomfortable ones, are necessary for a championship-caliber team. But the tension is unmistakable. The version of Jimmy Butler they see next will depend entirely on how the Warriors respond on the court. If they recommit to defending with force, playing with urgency, and showing the consistency expected of a veteran group, Butler's edge will sharpen them rather than divide them. If not, Golden State may find itself confronting a far more intense version of Butler, one unwilling to accept anything less than a team fully aligned with the standard he came here to revive. And with the season still young but already precarious, the Warriors must decide quickly which path they're choosing. Steve Kerr appeared surprisingly disconnected from Jonathan Kuminga's situation and recovery, admitting he had spoken only with the Warriors' medical staff rather than the forward himself. His response to questions about Kuminga's injury raised eyebrows and added fuel to the growing perception that the franchise has been neglecting the young player's circumstances. Throughout the NBA offseason, Kuminga and the Warriors remained at the center of league discussions, as contract negotiations dragged out until the final hours. Kuminga ultimately signed an extension, but there was lingering concern that the unresolved tension could resurface. And while he earned a starting role to open the season, his early struggles quickly cost him his place in the rotation. Kuminga grew increasingly frustrated, feeling once again that he was being positioned as the scapegoat for the team's downturn. And based on Kerr's dismissive remarks regarding his injury status, it's hard not to wonder whether Kuminga has reason to question how much the organization truly values him. Steve Kerr shows little awareness of Kuminga's recovery. Speaking to reporters before Monday night's matchup against the Utah Jazz, Kerr was asked about Kuminga's condition, and his comments suggested a lack of clarity, urgency, and even concern. "I don't know where he is, he'll have to tell you that. He hasn't done anything. We ran full contact work, and he barely took part. Coaching the team, working with the group, I have no idea what he's doing." He went on to add, "Honestly, I only talked to the medical staff and they told me he's day-to-day. Talking with JK, he said he's not moving very well. I can't give you a timeline, JK can tell you that better than I can." Kerr continued, noting that Kuminga would need to show significant improvement before returning. "He needs to feel better and be able to move better before we can put him out there. We need to figure out what's going on. We missed him when we played Miami." And then came the most telling line. "I didn't talk to him, but I expected him to practice today. He didn't. Clearly the situation is worse than we thought." Jonathan Kuminga is one of the league's most valuable trade chips. Given the mounting tension, the Warriors have every incentive to consider moving Kuminga. He is unhappy with his role, and the coaching staff isn't signaling long-term commitment. One NBA executive told Mark Stein that Kuminga is currently one of the most appealing trade assets in the league due to his combination of upside and contract value. "He's one of the best trade chips in the league," a veteran executive told the Stein line. Kuminga is earning $22.5 million this season, with a flexible team option of $24.3 million for next year, a bargain for a player with his athletic profile, age, and trajectory. He becomes eligible to be traded starting January 15th, and given the evident disconnect, both personally and strategically, it may be in the Warriors' best interest to move swiftly rather than let the situation deteriorate further. If Golden State truly believes Kuminga isn't part of their future, waiting may only diminish his value, and worsen an already strained relationship. The growing uncertainty surrounding Kuminga has also sparked debate within the Warriors' locker room and fan base. Several veterans have privately expressed concern that the situation is becoming a distraction, especially as the team continues to struggle with consistency, injuries, and a declining defensive identity. While no player has gone on record, league insiders report that some teammates believe the organization mishandled the communication around Kuminga's status, creating unnecessary tension at a critical point in the season. The media reaction has been equally intense. Analysts across national networks questioned how a head coach could be so uninformed about the condition of a starter who was expected to be a foundational piece of the franchise's next era. Some framed Kerr's comments as a sign of erosion in the once celebrated culture of transparency and accountability that defined the Warriors' dynasty years. Others argued that the organization is sending mixed messages by praising Kuminga's development while simultaneously minimizing his involvement. Front office dynamics have also entered the discussion. With pressure mounting on general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr., the Kuminga situation has become a referendum on the franchise's long-term planning. Golden State is trapped between honoring its veteran core and investing in younger talent, and Kuminga's frustration highlights the widening gap between those two priorities. If the front office chooses to move him, It could signal the beginning of a broader shift away from the Curry-Green era and toward a roster reset. Meanwhile, opposing teams are watching closely. Several franchises in need of athletic scoring wings and defensive versatility have positioned themselves to make offers the moment Kuminga becomes trade eligible. Executives believe that any delay could spark a bidding war, particularly among playoff hopefuls looking to add size, energy, and upside. For the Warriors, that interest only increases the scrutiny on how they handle the coming weeks. The repercussions extend beyond personnel decisions. Season ticket holders, local media, and even longtime supporters have voiced concern that the franchise is losing its identity. What was once viewed as a model organization is now being questioned for mixed messaging, unclear direction, and deteriorating relationships with its young players. If Kuminga is moved and thrives elsewhere, the criticism could intensify dramatically, especially if Golden State fails to return to contention. As the calendar moves closer to mid-January, the tension surrounding Kuminga's future is expected to escalate. Whether the Warriors repair the relationship or accelerate a trade, the outcome will shape not only the remainder of this season, but the trajectory of the franchise beyond it. Why did Steve Kerr erupt at Buddy Hield and the Warriors despite holding a 22-point lead over the Pelicans? Even in a dominant win against the New Orleans Pelicans, Kerr's frustration boiled over in the fourth quarter, leaving many wondering why a coach would be so furious in a game that was already well in hand. The victory marked Golden State's third straight win, pushing the team to 9-6 on the season. Moses Moody was the unexpected hero, exploding for 32 points and knocking down 8 of 12 three-point attempts. Stephen Curry, who had erupted for 49 points against the Spurs just days earlier, struggled to find rhythm this time, finishing with only 9 points. Despite that, the Warriors controlled the game comfortably and appeared to be cruising to the finish. But that calm shattered late in the fourth quarter. With just over 3 minutes remaining and Golden State up by 22, Buddy Hield committed a careless turnover on a simple inbound pass to Pat Spencer. Kerr immediately lost patience, shouting toward Hield and calling out the rest of the lineup for their sloppy execution. After the game, his message was sharp and unwavering. These types of mistakes may not matter in blowouts, but they can be devastating when the margin is thin. We can't be careless. We're inbounding the ball. There's no excuse for losing possession. We had another night like this, and it almost cost us in San Antonio. Kerr emphasized that the issue wasn't isolated to one player. It's a team problem, 21 turnovers. We know that if we want to compete at the highest level, we have to be much better. A sign of the Warriors finding their edge again. Despite the tense moment, the Warriors seem to be rediscovering momentum. Since their loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team has responded with renewed urgency. That defeat exposed defensive breakdowns, lack of focus and inconsistency, but ultimately served as a wake-up call rather than a setback. In the aftermath, Draymond Green openly challenged his teammates, calling for accountability and toughness. That spark appears to have ignited the group, pushing them toward sharper execution and greater cohesion. Now the question becomes how far this renewed energy can take them. At their best, the Warriors look unstoppable, spacing the floor, moving the ball, defending with purpose, and punishing teams with their depth. The challenge for Kerr is making those stretches sustainable, not occasional. If Golden State can bottle this version of itself, the ceiling rises dramatically. And Kerr's outburst, rather than a moment of irritation, may have been a reminder that championship habits don't switch on and off, even with a 22-point lead and the game already decided. Kerr's reaction has also sparked broader discussion about the state of the Warriors' culture. During their championship peaks, Golden State prided itself on discipline, attention to detail, and closing quarters with precision. The slip in fundamentals late in the game against the Pelicans served as a reminder that this roster cannot rely solely on talent or past reputation. Analysts pointed out that the Warriors no longer have the margin for error they once enjoyed, especially with a Western Conference that is deeper and more athletic than in previous seasons. The turnover issue has become a recurring storyline. In several games this year, careless mistakes have erased leads, stalled momentum, or opened the door for opponents to climb back into contention. Kerr's frustration reflects not only what happened against the Pelicans, but a pattern that threatens to undermine the team's progress. With an aging core and younger players still adapting to the system, Golden State cannot afford to sabotage itself with preventable errors. There are also strategic implications. Buddy Hield was brought in to stretch the floor and provide reliable shooting, but his defensive lapses and decision-making have become points of scrutiny. Some within the organization expected him to settle quickly into a complementary veteran role, yet moments like this raise questions about trust in late-game situations. If these issues persist, Hield's minutes and rotation status could shift, especially as Moody, Brandon Podziemski, and other emerging contributors continue to push for expanded roles. The win streak has bought the Warriors breathing room, but not immunity from criticism. With the schedule tightening and matchups against top-tier opponents on the horizon, the team will soon be tested in ways that demand sharper execution. The front office is monitoring closely, aware that every stretch of play influences decisions ahead of the trade deadline. If the Warriors plateau or regress, roster adjustments may become unavoidable. For now, Golden State sits in a fragile but promising position. The talent is evident, the depth is improving, and the confidence is climbing, yet the foundation remains unstable. Kerr's eruption may have been less about the scoreboard and more about urgency, a message that complacency cannot creep in if the Warriors intend to remain relevant in the championship conversation. The coming weeks will reveal whether the team absorbs the lesson or repeats the same mistakes. The pathway forward is clear: fewer turnovers, sustained effort, and consistent identity. Anything less, and moments like the fourth quarter against the Pelicans will shift from warning signs to defining traits.